Great. Thanks a lot for everyone to be here now. So let's start this great webinar. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this great, amazing webinar. It's great to have you here. Hope you all are having a fantastic day. This is our first webinar for this year, and what a way to kickstart with an exciting topic. So, the topic for today is how Gen AI is revolutionizing the retail industry. We are really excited to have you all here. Let me begin by introducing myself and the AI Core Spot to you. So my name is Nitin Naveen. I'm Vice President of Innovation and Strategy at AI Core Spot. With over a couple of decades of experience in consulting firms dealing with emerging technologies, I feel fortunate to consistently engage with numerous stakeholders, global leaders, and their incredible problem solving and innovative ideas. Joining me today, there are a few of my colleagues, Arvind, Archana, and Naveen, who will add some energy to this event. A big applause to them for their dedication. Let me tell you something about our company, AI Core Spot. It was founded more than a couple of years ago. It's a knowledge hub focused on a lot of emerging topics like AI, ML, robotics, IoT, and much more. Our webinars aim to share the latest technological advancements in the industry. We dive into various tech sectors, unveiling a fresh theme every month and steadily gaining momentum. Our goal as a company is to become the leading AI-driven community worldwide, where individuals like you with similar interests can contribute to mutual growth and success. We are committed to organizing industry-backed webinars and hybrid events, grounding our knowledge through credible data from esteemed industry leaders, subject matter experts, thought leaders, and all our trusted partners. Additionally, we fine-tune our content across various digital platforms. We use blogs, videos, podcasts, newsletters to shed light on this ever-evolving industry. Now, coming about today's webinar for which you all are here for. As I said in the beginning, a really exciting topic up for today, which is how Gen AI is revolutionizing the retail industry. So what you will learn here, you will learn how Gen AI is improving the shopping, the customer experience, the personalization, and all the future trends, and so on. Our expert panel will share valuable insights and engage in thought-provoking discussions that you won't want to miss. Now, let's kickstart the discussion with some quick highlights. Meet our community partners for today. We have 4 great companies, which includes Jewelry, Television, Foot Locker, Sportsman, Warehouse, and Infovision, who played a crucial role in making this webinar a success. Also, a big thank to all our attendees. Your time and presence means a lot to us. We appreciate you being here to achieve your goals and connect with fellow participants. Our platform's main goal is to help you gain valuable insights and build meaningful relationships. So, if you leave with a few innovative ideas or build new connections, we'll consider it a job well done. Now, let me introduce all our esteemed speakers for today. So, first speaker for today is Ryan, his Chief Analytics Officer at Jewelry Television. Our second speaker for today is Amy. She is Senior Director of Mobile Engineering at Foot Locker. Our third speaker is Shauna. She is Chief Information Technology Officer at Sportsman Warehouse. And fourth speaker and moderator for this panel is Hemant, who is AVP Digital Innovation Retail Division at Infovision. So just one-liner disclaimer before we start this amazing webinar. The views shared by all the speakers are their personal ones, and it's not related to any organization which they represent for. So now over to you, Hemant, to begin this exciting panel discussion.
Thanks, Nathan. Good morning, everyone. So happy to see you, Shauna, Ryan, and Amy. Good to meet you on this forum. And as I mention every time, right? Whenever I come for a session like this, there is a lot of takeaway from me, where I learn from leaders like you, sharing my 2 cents, and also go back to my drawing board. And whenever I get in front of any leader, right, all this really helps, right? So all we do here is share our individual views and learn from each other, and certainly share our experiences with the wider group, especially in among the retail enthusiasts. So thanks for taking time and being here, and my pleasure to be a part of this great event. So as we all know, Gen AI is it's a hot topic out there, right? So there is not a single industry that doesn't talk about Gen AI, and everyone is inclined towards, some have already started to work on, some are in a very early stage of piloting initiatives specific to Gen AI. But definitely there is a lot of potential that we all see, and some of us have already implemented that in a small scale, and we are looking at taking it towards a larger rollout. So having said that, getting onto the topic, I would want to start with the most interesting aspect of Gen AI, which is the personalization part, as we all talk about, right? So any industry, especially in retail, we see a lot of inclination towards personalization. And especially in the last few years, after I would call this as the endemic age, right? So we entered the pandemic, and then we see a lot of change in the consumer behavior. So in that essence, right, Shana, my question to you is more towards, how do you see personalization creating an impact among the consumers, the new age consumers? So I would want to hear from you on your thoughts and what you see as a part of the industry in the last few quarters or so.
Sure. Thank you. And good morning, everyone. Shauna Del Euro, again, most recently CIO, CTO for Sportsman's Warehouse. So happy to be here this morning. Happy to talk with you all. Thank you for the question. I think, it's interesting. We've seen so much just post-COVID and the way that things have shifted and changes, and the differences in consumer patterns and behaviors, specifically around brand loyalty and personalization, and the way that we as in technology have had to pivot and really change and morph the way that we leverage technology to be more agile in our personalization efforts and our marketing, and the way that we leverage technology in our platforms to be more adaptive. And I think specifically around Gen AI, and as we have these radical technologies now at our disposal, at our fingertips, to be able to leverage them, there are ways that can now transcend industry or transcend vertical or market. We have recommendation engines and the adaptation of AI and continuous learning, the machine learning algorithms that can suggest product or suggest service specific to individual preference, and can do so in speed that we've not known before. So not only does that increase that likelihood of that satisfaction of the customer in that immediate experience, but it helps us to enhance that overall shopping experience and help them to come back for more. So we're seeing to where, as we, for the last couple of decades, saw that decline and that degradation of experience and that degradation of loyalty, we're seeing that kind of that tide turn, and we're seeing it come back around because we're able to be more agile and to be more fluid in the way that we shift. And as we take all of this data, and we're able to adapt those changes and that consumer behavior, and to be more sure of ourselves in the way that we personalize that experience time and time again, I think that we're becoming better about the validity of that experience, whether it's on the weekend, or it's early morning, or it's late day, or it's summer and the off season or the peak season. And so I think keeping in tune and aligned with those preferences is really key. And I think Gen AI will just continue to help us to be better about that.
Absolutely, Sean. I think very valuable points, and I do echo your thoughts in terms of the customer conversions and keeping them engaged with the brand. Personalization adds a lot to it. And Amy, a quick question to you on a similar context, right? When we talk about personalization, we are in this new omni-channel world, talking exclusively on the mobile side, the mobile engineering side, when it comes to the overall mobile experience. So what is it you see as the future, in terms of personalizing the digital consumer experience? Any thoughts, Amy?
So, hi everyone, Amy Chikluski. I am just Senior Director of Mobile Engineering at Foot Locker. I'm excited to talk to you this morning. So yeah, I think personalization is something that, from a mobile app and even web applications, typically how this process kind of works, right, is when you're in the design phase, you define maybe 3 to 5 personas that sort of identify your ideal customers. And then you design the whole experience around how it will work for those 3 to 5 personas. The reality is, though, that human beings do not neatly fit into 3 to 5 personas. And so the ability to really customize a digital experience at a more granular level is really powerful. We have the ability to really meet customers where they are. And so, yeah, we can, using generative AI, we could actually customize the experience itself, bringing it to life in a dynamic way so that it's changing, maybe not even on the person, but according to what time of day it is or what, what's going on in that person's life. So we can change the layout, the fonts, the color contrast, animation. The entire experience could be customized for each person that's using the experience to really, bring it to life for that individual person.
Interesting. So I have a follow-up thought on this, Amy. Like, if you can deep dive into that, that will be of a great help, right? Today, when it comes to the mobility landscape, one of the key challenges that we see is the adoption, right? So every brand has got their mobile app today, and the problem is getting the consumers to download the mobile app. Second thing is about retaining them within your loyalty funnel, right? These are two things that we normally see that as the typical challenges. And in that situation, except very few brands, the other brands are like still struggling to increase their adoption rate. And how do you see Gen AI contributing to that adoption rate and continuing to keep the customers engaged with a specific mobile app experience? I want to hear from a leader like you more.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to build that personal relationship with a customer. So especially on mobile, you have the ability, you're in the customer's pocket all day long, every single day. So you have ability to really build a one-on-one relationship with your customer. And so it's a delicate balance, right? To use that in a way that's complementary and helps the customer and isn't necessarily in their face and, to the point where they don't want to use the experience. So you want to make sure that you're giving them whatever information they need at the time that they need it, but not overwhelming them with things that aren't relevant or that are going to annoy them or cause them. So it's a delicate balance. But through doing that, once you build that relationship, that's where you get to the loyalty aspect, right? And you can definitely reward your customers and, try to build a loyalty relationship that way. But honestly, the best way to build that relationship is through, this personal connection, being what they need in the moment that they need it, dynamically customizing, being able to, if I don't know, if a particular customer has accessibility needs, making sure that you're meeting those exact needs of that customer in that moment, so they feel like the experience is customized just for them. And yeah, so I really think that personal experience and personal relationship is what sets a mobile experience apart from others.
Perfect. Yeah. I get that completely. And that's the challenge that we are all going through, right? We all have data, and it's up to us to how we leverage that particular data to personalize the customer experience to keep them engaged within our funnel. Great thoughts, Amy. So Ryan, while we talk about the contextualization, right? Especially when it comes to marketing in Amy's world. On the mobility, we look at the push notifications as a part of messaging or keeping them up to date on what's happening within the brand. But outside that, there is a lot that we do from an email campaign standpoint, or could be any marketing initiatives. I would want to hear from you more on how these large language models and the GPTs would help in better connecting the brand with the end consumers. Like, I want your thoughts out here.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Ryan McClurkin. I'm the Chief Analytics Officer at Jewelry Television. And when I look at the marketing space, and I have a deep background in kind of marketing measurement, especially, we're starting to see LLMs used in the marketing and remarketing. And what's happening is they're serving these ads on demand to the consumer. And what they're starting to do is, based on your browsing history, they will start to use that web page information and use an LLM model to personalize the text being sent to you, or the text being shown to you in the ad, to try to increase that conversion rate. And we're starting to see that across, especially the first ones we're starting to see across is DSPs, dynamic banner ads. We're starting to see it in text ads. I'll call innovative email marketers are also starting to use it to try to create really dynamic email content that engages that consumer specifically for their different browsing habits, what they're looking at, what they're interested in, but using LLMs in that sense. And so, I think in the marketing world, it's going to change how, you're going to see a different ad than I see. And we already have seen that, but it's going to become more and more personalized based on your browsing history, reading the content of the websites, and serving ads based on, really, really personalized messages to try to get you to convert. Because the amount of information these advertisers have is pretty unbelievable as well. So they know they know what you're seeing on Jewelry Television, but they also know what you're seeing on every other website you visit and what you're buying. And so they're going to start to personalize the ads. And I think the advertisers and marketers that are really going to take off and make a huge impact are ones that learn to leverage generative AI the right way. And we're starting to see beta tests all over the place with leveraging LLMs in real personalized marketing messages.
So one follow-up thought and a question on this, Ryan, like while we talk about these smart banners, like you just mentioned, right, like where we the retailers want to put up the contextual deep links on the different banners they put, like, and in order to see where the customers has come from and understand the channel of entry point, right, like where they get into your ecosystem. So how do you see that getting tied to generative AI for better personalizing such communications out there? And how do you see the future as?
Yeah, specifically what we're seeing is the text that they put on the ads themselves is starting to be personalized using LLMs, because I think what happens too is an ad copywriter, eventually they just run out of things. Like the human brain just runs out of things to say, and you start to see repetitive messages in your marketing. And so what we're starting to see is LLMs being leveraged, one, to take some of the, I'll call it the heavy lifting off the ad copywriters to begin with, especially if you're doing a lot of marketing, right? But two, it's really the text being displayed on the ads themselves, or the text generated in emails. That's where we're starting to see the LM models really start, and generative AI really start to, the first places we're seeing it in marketing is specifically the text and in the emails and the text on the ads themselves being generated by LM models to try to really personalize it to the consumer. And they're doing it in a very dynamic fashion. I mean, it's almost instantaneous, right? When you're bidding for a consumer, you have to be able to instantly generate that text in the ad and in the bid, and that's what we're starting to see.
Makes perfect sense, Ryan. Yeah. And I think we are in a very early stage of measuring the KPIs out there, right? On how is this like creating an impact, and what we are seeing in the market is generative AI is scaling at an over 10 to 11% CAGR year on year from 2023 to 2028 is the near-term prediction, but we'll have to wait and see on how efficiently that could grow further. So interesting to get to hear your thoughts, Ryan. And bringing this back to Shana, we just spoke about how those smart banners, advertisements, and what is the future of that particular space with Gen AI, right? And I want to hear from you more on leveraging data analytics in order to make informed retail choices. So how do you see the adoption of generative AI there, and any specifics that you would want to call out, which is a necessity at this point to where you think Gen AI could solve a problem out there?
Yeah, I think just to build on what Amy and Ryan both shared, whether it's mobile or it's banners on desktop app or it's web versioning, I think it's all about recognizing that we have much more tech savvy shoppers than ever before, and we have to show up being equal or better and a step ahead, and we can't be the lag. We've got to be the lead in that, or as operators, as businesses, I mean, you should expect to fall behind. You have to be aggressive in market, and we have to be fast. So embracing that and implementing is key. So those personalized strategies are all about how we meet our customer where they are. To Amy's point, If that means that we're in their pocket, then how is it that we build a trusted relationship so that when they pull out their device, that they know that that is really something that is specific to them? So leveraging those data points to exactly what Ryan said, that it means something, that it resonates with them, that they truly feel as though it's not just lip service, if you will, that it's truly a campaign that is not just to their generation, not just to their demographic, but it's specific to their shopping patterns. It's specific to what they buy or what they've been searching for. And again, to what Ryan said, it transcends that specific site. It transcends this specific business. It goes beyond that. It goes to their entirety of search history. It goes to what they've been looking for over the past 6, 8, 12 months. And so pulling all of that data together and taking those algorithms that have been running for quite some time, but pulling that into an experience for them that takes the guesswork out of it. I don't want to sit and search through multiple sites. I don't want to search through reports to find that upper right to determine what my next big buying decision is. I want that to be intuitive based on what I know other patterns are, what I know that I've already looked up. And I would love to have that be an easy experience, but I need the trust in that data that's coming back. And it means I need to know that it's not just the one who paid the most to be at the top of that search. I need to know that it's based on real data that is relevant to me. So my criteria needs to be what goes into the result, not just that search, that paid top result that's coming back to me. So again, I think it just goes into saying we have all of this data at our disposal. It's how do we wrap our arms around it? But how do we do so responsibly with great security measures in place, with great responsibility to our customers and to ourselves to make certain that we're being good stewards of that data and that we're doing the right things right in the way that we internalize it and then we interpret it and then we pass that back. So I think there's a shared accountability there as well when we talk about how we take the details of that data and make certain that, we're doing what it is that makes good sense. We obviously want to use that. I mean, it's a gold mine, and we've got all of this. It's such a goodness. And I think, as technologists, we get really excited about it. And we can really go down a rabbit hole of, getting really deep into the data. But there's a sweet spot there as to what we return back to our customers and our consumers and what we leverage to make certain that it's still logical and it's right.
Perfect. That definitely gives us a lot more detail on the analytics part, Shauna, especially today it's all data, right? So we're trying to capture as much as information from consumers, like whether it is the shopping patterns or the buying behavior, and all that goes back into the personalization funnel, in order to keep or enhance the overall consumer experience. Thank you for the great insights you shared. And tying this back, to the topic of Chat GPT, the first thing we all think about is the content creation, right? So as that is the area where the generative AI is disrupting now. So talking in terms of retail, tying that into the retail space and bringing in the product descriptions, right? How do we write or enhance the way we are creating product descriptions today? So I would want to hear from you, Ryan, especially dealing with the large language models, and how do you see the effectiveness of generative AI in creating better product descriptions?
Yeah, so I think LLMs and generative AI are perfect. A perfect use of them is, for example, product descriptions, right? And in our business, we have at any given moment 40 to 60,000 active SKUs for sale on our website, and then historically almost 3 million SKUs. And so when you think about how, but pre kind of generative AI and LLMs being accessible to individuals, how you would create those descriptions is you have a merchandising team, right? You have a bunch of merchandising assistants, and they're literally writing these descriptions. And eventually they all start to sound similar. And what happens is the creativity in the, we're selling jewelry. So, you'd love to romance the jewelry a little bit. in terms of how you sell it to the individuals. And eventually you run out of that. You have someone who is literally writing product descriptions all day as a copywriter, and they start to sound similar, they get a little bland. And so one of the areas that we have actually started to implement immediately is feeding LLMs different, what I'll call product information attributes or PIM attributes. And, you can feed it carat size, stone weight, all kinds of different, the stone type, metal type, and product type. And then what happens is we will ping generative AI to basically generate a product description at either so many words or, so many paragraphs. And what we've started to see is that we can give it different tones as well. And what we've started to see are some really kind of rich, detailed SEO optimized product descriptions come out of it. And we can specify to be SEO optimized, for example. And that's something that, a merchandising assistant just coming into the business, they have no idea about, for example, SEO and how the web team would love to leverage SEO. And they have no idea how to write an SEO optimized, for example, product description. And so what we've started to do is create a pipeline of product descriptions. And when you're dealing with a turnover of SKUs, 40 to 60,000 active SKUs in any given moment, creating the product descriptions becomes a very unwieldy process, almost instantaneously. And so what happens is the generative AI and LLMs have really helped us leverage, really what we do is we create a pipeline, and then a merchandising assistant will look it over. We still have that human brain on it because you get AI hallucinations all the time. And so we have to be careful of that as well, to make sure that the information in the actual description that it's giving back is truthful, making sure there's some parameters around that. So we still have a human brain looking at the generated product description, but they either approve it or deny it or kind of change it, alter it, right? But it's doing a lot of that heavy lifting initially, and adding some creativity into those product descriptions. And, it's really helped our merchandising process and just being able to create kind of an automated process. And slowly we're replacing all the product descriptions on the website. It takes time, obviously, but we're slowly doing that, and it really helps the consumer, the visibility, the user engagement. We're seeing a lot better user engagement by leveraging LLMs in certain product descriptions, seeing higher conversion rates on the PDPs. So, we're seeing some good results out of that.
So really interesting to hear that, Ryan. And in a couple of retailer mobile apps or even the sites, right? When we look into the product description nowadays, we start seeing those disclaimer saying that this description is being created by AI, and this is pretty much like close to what it is. Like a lot of interest. We have seen like many retailers getting adopted, to this generative AI, and they started leveraging it for creating a precise product description. Right? Though you have like a paragraph of it, it should definitely talk about what the product is and what as a consumer that I would want to see from a product description as, right? So good. So Amy, following up on this, right, being a mobile person, like how do you see the product catalogs getting revisited with the Gen AI adoption? Any interesting things that you'd want to share, or like I would love to hear more examples from you on this front, Amy.
Yeah, so I think Ryan did a really good job of talking about, how the LLMs can be used to really create the, product descriptions that are meaningful for SEO, as well as, speaking to the customer and kind of the emotions that maybe they're feeling as they're trying to purchase jewelry. I think that's a really good description. A couple of things just to add to that. I think it's definitely important, at least at this point, we're still doing human reviews of some of these things, right? I think it isn't a case where yet maybe we're ready to deploy all these product descriptions without having a review first. So I think that there's still some ways to go there, but the opportunity to be able to have multiple product descriptions, right? So that you could customize that according to who your customer is. I think that's something that on a digital platform you can do, right? Where I think Netflix is kind of the great example. They do it with their images, right? They've got multiple different images, and they change which one they show for, their hero image for a particular show. It changes according to who is actually looking at it. And I think the ability to do that on a bigger scale across, product descriptions as well as images could be really important and compelling for customers as they're trying to make their purchasing decisions. One last thing, I think, as we're, these product descriptions, there's the brand perspective as well as the retailer perspective, and trying to make sure that we're, being careful about the wording and everything else to reach the voice of the brand as well as the voice of the retailer. And I think that that's something where AI can really help. Like, a human being is, only able to do so much. And I think being able to keep those two perspectives in mind and finding something that's beneficial for both is a great sweet spot for AI.
Great. So following up on this team, this is fun. It's an open question. I think we have this question coming up from one of the attendees of this event. They want to know more about how we are leveraging Gen AI towards the pricing strategy. That's a very interesting question today, right? So in this omni-channel space, pricing is an important decision-making factor for a consumer, to go with a specific brand, right? So in this competitive world where people are looking at price match, the price override kind of a thing, right? How do we see Gen AI creating an impact or disrupting that particular space, giving the customers a confidence saying that, hey, I'm making the right decision, and with the right retailer, I'm getting the best price out there? How do we see the future in this particular aspect? Amy, Shana, or Ryan, I want to hear from each of you on how you think it's going to drive.
Yeah, I can take a stab at this real quick, because we do a lot of different stuff with obviously optimized pricing strategies. Given 40 to 60,000 active SKUs, we're also kind of a discount retailer, so we're always setting prices. And I don't know, I actually don't view pricing as necessarily it's not necessarily a generative AI conversation, especially with like LLMs. It's not in that sphere of AI. But we do a lot of deep learning and kind of neural nets related to pricing, and specifically like Neo4j and graph databases as it relates to pricing and how you actually price the item relative to items around it, or when you have we're a television retailer as well. When you have a lineup of items that you're showing a consumer, how you price them is very critical in terms of, you may start with a higher price item that looks very similar, and then when you get into that item, if it's your key item that you really want to sell, you really want to make it a great deal, because you showed them maybe something that's slightly unaffordable, and then you show them a very, very similar look that's very affordable, and they jump all over that item. And so and that is really more of a graph database type of model, where you're trying to find relationships and sequencing as it relates to pricing, versus something more in the generative AI realm. So we haven't necessarily started to leverage, say, generative AI for dynamic pricing, but we definitely use image matching models, TensorFlow models, neural networks, and graph database models for pricing, and how you price SKUs kind of dynamically and relative to the consumer behavior, but not necessarily generative AI in that sense.
Yeah, I would agree with Ryan. I think where Gen AI may come into play a bit more, in that it just comes back to the trending, the analytics, and some of those data points. So some of that price scraping, not unlike that of looking at what are other review points. So what are the number of stars that are associated with a given product, and pulling together all of that data to produce a recommendation for a given consumer. So versus it being, product specific to a given item or a given site, what is it returning in gross value? So I think that's probably more where the Gen AI aspect comes in, versus that very neural aspect that we're already leveraging. So I don't know if, Amy, you have a different perspective from a pure mobile app standpoint, but.
No, I think you all did a very good job of describing it. And I think, yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to have a different price in mobile versus other channels, right? You want to make sure you're consistent and your customers know what to expect, no matter where it is that they're interacting with you. So, yeah.
So the here is team, like I wanted, the reason why I was asking this question was, even I keep having this thought, right? When it comes to the price fluctuations, right? We have the historical data of prices of specific commodities going up and down. Not every commodity does, but there are few items, for example, fuel, like, no one can predict when the prices go up and when it comes down, right? Similarly, like, there are certain items during the peak season, you see them dropping down big time. And my thoughts were more on how Gen AI is gonna like help in terms of giving that intelligence into your pricing engine, right? To make it's again, the decision is up to us to whether, like, change the price or not. But it is always good for us to know, like, what do we see the fluctuation as, and when do we make that decision. For example, if you guys are doing a price lock or a price match initiative and you want to send out a push notification, right, when exactly that needs to go out, all that. Like, I was just thinking aloud, because there is a lot, we are in a very early stage of leveraging Gen AI for all that, but there is a lot that's going out in the industry. And that's why, like, I wanted to bring this question as a priority and ask you guys on, like, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, Hemant, when I look at when I look at specifically like the retail space in general, right? The goal of any retail firm is to expand in perpetuity the customer lifetime value, the pool of customer lifetime value, right? Like, your firm value increases if your pool of lifetime value increases over time. And so, like, having a lifetime value model is critical inside any retail business. And what happens is you would love to generate behavior that increases lifetime value. Okay. So to your point, when you have price fluctuations, like, when do I push them to the consumer? what you love to do is have a model in place that knows when to push certain price fluctuations and when not, to increase lifetime value, right? At the end of the day, what you want to do is create incremental lifetime value for your consumers. And you have to be really careful also with pricing, because you could do the opposite, right? You could actually upset your consumers by dynamic pricing. I've actually seen it go more upsetting the consumer than appeasing the consumer, because they said, oh well, if I had waited 3 days, I would have gotten a better deal, right? And so you have to be really conscientious of that, because in most retail businesses, 20% of your consumers do 80% of your revenue. It's a very common rule. And so you have to be really conscientious of that 20% and how they react to dynamic pricing. And what you'd love to have in place, for example, is a generative AI model that knows smartly kind of when to push price optimizations and pricing strategies, and really what your training function, when you're saying, hey, if you're using like a reinforcement learning model, what you really want to be able to study is, oh, when I do this, I get incremental lifetime value, right? And continue to do that. When I do this, I decrement lifetime value. Don't do that, right? And then you start to personalize that message to the consumer to really try to drive loyalty and incremental lifetime value.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I think that there's also something to keep in mind, that when we talk about that hyper price sensitivity, that, I mean, to Ryan's point, when you start to see a degradation of trust, I mean, that lifetime, what we're seeking to achieve there starts to be compromised. And then there's also impact, if you're not just an online retailer and you have brick and mortar, you're passing on some impact to your labor and your workforce at the front line. So with every one of those changes and every one of those fluctuations, depending on the volatility and the frequency of those changes, the frontline employees are the ones who are faced with that in-person experience. And so what does that look like for them? And so there's some cost associated with, one, the experience, and two, with that fluctuation, that you have to be very careful about how sensitive and how frequent you want to make those changes. And so while it's very good, and we want to be very sensitive to that increased competition, and we want to be, really agile in that, there's something to be said for that increase in customer expectation around how we leverage that advanced and intuitive tool of AI to be able to make those changes swiftly, that doesn't compromise the level of trust that they have in us.
Absolutely. Great thoughts, Shauna, because that's a very sensitive area, as everyone echoed it, right? So it could be a double-edged sword, how we leverage that, right? At times it might go in a different direction, and we might even not get the appreciation of a customer, right? So that part, like, completely agreed. So Amy, like, the other thing I wanted to hear from you is more about the customer service. Everyone talks about the customer care and customer service today, right? How better that can be improvised leveraging AI, and especially with Gen AI. And do you see any new trends out in that particular space? Like, or have you implemented it, or do you see any impact that is being created by Gen AI in that space?
I mean, chatbots are everywhere, right? And they're being used for customer care all over the place. But I'm sure you all, like me, like sometimes those experiences can be unsatisfying. They can be like robotic or impersonal. It's easy to get to a state where it's like the chatbot just doesn't understand what you're trying to say, and you're screaming for a human being. So with generative AI, I think there's the ability to really improve this experience. So it can adapt on the fly. It can react to not just the words you're using, but potentially looking, the tone of voice and kind of maybe even understanding how you're feeling a little bit, versus just like parsing a customer's sentence for keywords and trying to break down, that into some sort of action. Instead, it can actually do a better job of understanding the intent of what you're trying to say, and even expanding. If you change your intent, you change your mind. A lot of times those can cause chatbots to, sort of freak out. I think that, using generative AI, we can build a more intelligent chatbot that can adapt on the fly and be more, more in the moment with the customers.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, at times even we all feel that, hey, I want to talk to a human. We don't get that right answer, and depending on the situation where you are in, right? If it is a simple query, yes, we are okay. But if it is a sensitive issue, or when you really need, like, details, that is when we get stuck into that loop. So any thoughts on this, Shauna? Like, have you ever seen any such situations out in your experience where Gen AI has helped in better servicing your end consumers when it comes to the customer support and care?
Yeah, in the last couple of years, some of the, even predating kind of the more Gen AI, some of the solutions that were really that maturation of AI, and some of the more cognitive and generative AI that were really kind of pushing forward and starting to do exactly what Amy just described, listening to that voice inflection, hearing the difference between something that was transactional and something that was emotional, something that I don't need to speak with an agent. I want to know my order status. I want to schedule something. I want to reorder or cancel, or I want something that's just a data point. The majority of us in this day and age have zero desire to speak to anyone for those types of things, right? We know what we want it now, and we want to hang up and be done. It's why Amazon has no 800 number on their website, right? I mean, we want that experience. We would just want that information. So give it to us, make it accessible and available. On the flip side of that, there's still that emotional need tied to so many other things. So when we talk about our healthcare, for instance, there are a myriad of things that can still be solved that are very transactional, but there are so many others that require that human touch. And so you have to have an AI solution that can solve for the both of them. It can be the same ingest, it can be the same AI solution that's fielding that call, or that is the intake via web, but it has to be able to parse that. It has to understand and recognize that when Amy calls in for something that's transactional, that can be handled via a bot, that can be handled via without a human interaction. But when Amy's voice or her tone or certain words are part of that, it immediately takes her out of that loop and gets her to a human because of based on what she said, or based on the tone of voice or the emotion. And so getting to that point is where some solutions are a bit more advanced than others. But I think in short, we'll get there with so many of these, and we'll get to a point where we're leveled up with all of the AI solutions. We're seeing such saturation across the board with all of these companies coming up. I mean, every day I think I see a new one. But again, it's a good thing because, we do want to get to where we have a point that we can serve our customers more effectively, and we can do so more expeditiously. That solves for all of those use cases in short order, but it's still very sensitive as to how we do that. In Ryan's world, a $500 transaction versus a $15,000 transaction are very different, right? And so how we handle those customers and field them, we have to be able to do that without them going through 5 or 6 hops in a traditional or legacy IVR.
Yeah,
So that like the one you just mentioned, sorry, then about understanding the pattern, right? Depending on the tone of a customer or the specific words they use, and then redirecting it to a different human, probably if there is an intervention that is needed. So I did like that a lot, and I see that changing the way how the current chatbots are behaving. Shana, thank you so much for your thoughts. Sorry, Ryan, please.
Yeah, I think chatbots is one thing, and then additionally to that, and to add on to what Amy and Shauna have said is I actually see like intelligent site search becoming much more intuitive leveraging generative AI. Now I haven't actually seen a specific implementation of it other than I saw a demo with a retailer, but when you think about how you shop and how you actually shop for, like, let's just say jewelry, right? Like I come to a website and I've got 60,000 SKUs, or even Amazon with millions of SKUs, right? And I'm going to search for something. I'm usually trying to solve a need versus, or like I'm trying to accessorize an outfit or solve a need, right? And really what you would love to do in site search is, rather than say, hey, I'm just going to look for some white pearls, for example, maybe it's more like, hey, I'm going to a gala, I'm wearing a red dress, like what would accessorize with this? Or I'm just trying to fill out my basic jewelry portfolio. What should every woman have in their basic jewelry portfolio? What are the key critical items? And personalize that site search in what is served to the consumer versus just what I'll call a regurgitation of just products, right, that match white pearls, right? What you'd really love to do is personalize that site search so that it specifically matches the need, and LLM could really help you do that, right, in that interaction. And I've actually seen it with one retailer, and it's actually pretty unbelievable. It was someone who sells healthcare products, and the consumer can basically interact with it's really implemented via a chatbot where they can interact with a chatbot using LLM, but then it actually generates the product listings relative to what they're looking for. So they can say, hey, I'm looking for clean protein that has this, that, this. What are your options? What do you recommend? And then it will generate the product listings. And I think that's actually probably the future of site search is you leveraging LLMs to interact with site search, because it's much more intuitive than going to a website and saying, hey, I'm looking for a garnet ring, for example. You may not even know necessarily what you're looking for.
I think you're right. I think that absolutely makes a lot of sense. I wonder if we could even take that one step further, right? Where generative AI is actually like expanding on your search results, or like you said, putting together an outfit or a set of products that go together. But also, what if those images themselves are personalized? What if like you're searching for some hiking boots and it shows you a picture of you or somebody wearing these hiking boots in a park that's by your house, or in a park that you visited a lot in the past, and it knows that you really enjoy. I think there's a way to really even bring that to life even more for a customer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I see a lot, because what you just mentioned, I think about this demographics, right? So when you're able to personalize that search based on a person's demography, that resonates well, rather seeing a generic image of a particular product when you get into the search. And Ryan, to your point, when you spoke about this site search, right? And that was the next question I was even I was thinking of asking you, but good that you brought this up. And today we are looking at interesting components like the image search, right? So today the search has become easy than how it was a few years back. Today you don't even need to know a product name. All you do is type a sentence, it figures out what it is, and it lists down what exactly you're trying to find. But now with Gen AI and Gen AI taking a lead on this, today we are all you do is upload a picture of you, and it exactly determines the blazer, what you wear and where else you could find that particular blazer. And moreover, it even comes with recommendations saying on the pattern and what else could go along with what you searched for. So that is already there. I don't know how many of the retailers have started to use it, but like Google getting that implemented in their app today. That's the first step like that I saw, but I see a lot of traction towards it. So what do you think the future of image search as? Do you think that will like go well in the retail space, or are we in the very early stage of adoption? I want to hear your thoughts on that, Ryan, because that is very close to the line of business you are into. So that's why I wanted to understand.
Yeah, I do think image search will become much more sophisticated using generative AI for sure. If you're especially if you're looking for a specific look, for example, but you don't know what it is, if you could feed it an image and then there's generative AI or TensorFlow matching models to serve the closest products that we offer, for example, that could certainly impact site search. I haven't seen a specific implementation of that yet. I think there are actually limitations to how the LLMs are trained versus the data layer you give them to actually feed results. I think the challenge is actually in the data layer that the company has to feed an LLM, right? Because you could leverage, for example, GPT-4, but it's trained on just millions and millions of records, and you actually have to give it what it can serve up as its results given the context of your company. And I think the contextual data is actually the hardest part of feeding it. The right contextual data is actually going to be the challenge of technology teams and IT teams is being able to training your own GPT model is really kind of it's an unrealistic proposition because of the cost, the amount of time it takes, the cost, the resources. And so leveraging GPT models is more of the realistic proposition, but then feeding it the right contextual data to be able to say, okay, you can only serve these results, right, relative to my company is actually the biggest challenge. And, whether it becomes an image that you're serving it from a ring on a finger that you saw and you're like, hey, I want something just like that, or whether it's actually interacting with it like an LLM. I think the biggest challenge actually becomes serving it, feeding it the right context, and training that model with the right context actually becomes the biggest challenge. That's at least the challenges that we have faced, and when I've talked to individuals is keeping the model in bounds with what it can serve up as recommendations, and not letting it hallucinate,
Right.
are the biggest challenges.
Yeah, but I think going back to what you even started with, Ryan, around a couple of questions ago when we talked about like your PIM team and getting that, leveraging this technology to improve the way that we do product description on our sites. We had PIM teams of dozens or hundreds of people, and what you get from that is you get an abbreviation here, you get a full word here, you get a somewhat, I was about to use a not so appropriate word, but I mean, you get this this hybrid description that is not so standardized. And so you want things that become more consistent over time. And so while, to Ryan's point, it's cost prohibitive, it's time prohibitive today, I think over time we'll see that maturation to where across industry, while I believe that we'll have unique LLMs by vertical, by industry. I think we'll see those develop over time, and become very unique. I think that we'll see some consistency more broadly across retail, where we're leveraging AI to have the same abbreviations, where we're leveraging AI to use the same word, the same nomenclature for our product descriptions across web and across retailers. And so I think we'll be able to leverage that beyond just our, whether it's jewelry or it's outdoor or it's apparel or it's, whether it's soft goods, hard goods, whatever the case may be. I think those data points will become more relevant and they'll transcend. And we'll be able to ingest them a bit more effectively. And in turn, then our consumers and customers will be able to take that data and be able to use it more widely as well.
So I kind of want to circle back to what Hemant's original question around image search, right? Like Google just announced image search. And I think we're going to learn so much by seeing how people actually interact with that feature. Like having it available to the masses is going to be really informational for the rest of us, right? To understand how customers might be using that for product searches or for other things. But think about the potential of taking user-generated content, being able to, like, Ryan, you sort of said this, but, see a ring on a finger or look at an item, and be able to look through your product catalog to find a match. But even better, maybe it's like finding the whole style. Like, I just really like the way this influencer looks. Can you find me a look that, matches that style, not necessarily each individual item that that person is wearing? I think there's a ton of potential here. And I think Google making it available to everyone is going to give all of us a lot of information about how we can take advantage of it.
I think, I think to that, even when you talk about total personalization, especially in the jewelry space, you can actually create custom jewelry based on image search as well. Like if you don't have a matching product, there are companies that we're starting to see pop up where, you could take an image search and generative AI can actually generate the CAD file necessary to build the jewelry piece itself.
Wow.
Very cool.
Interesting. Yep. So, Shana, Amy, and Ryan, taking this to the next level, right? A year back or a year and a half back, virtual try-on was in a very beta stage, right? So not every retailer had that. Today, we see a lot of traction when it comes to the try-on experiences, especially on the mobile adoption going up, and people want to have a virtual feel of wearing. I keep getting messages from Amazon saying that, why don't you give a feedback on the virtual try-on experience you had on the Nike, shoes you tried recently? But I see like a lot of interest from retailers in implementing that. I wanted to hear from you, because when you want to create an virtual try-on experience, it's not that easy, right? Like you'll have to generate that many images, create a model that feeds in that particular, or even you might want to even create that synthetic images, right? Like you cannot have that many real-time images in the world, like to create an virtual try-on experience. So how do you guys see, the future of virtual try-ons with Gen AI? Is that going to make it easier? Or I want to hear from you all on, the virtual try-on with Gen AI.
So if I can go first, I think a lot of companies are working on, AR try-on, like you said, with Amazon. And honestly, the experience is pretty good, right? You can kind of move your foot around and see how the shoes look on your foot or whatever. Like it gives you a good idea of kind of, what it's going to be like. But I was reading about Levi's, I think it was. And okay, first, let me just say, like, as a woman, like trying on jeans is like the worst thing ever. It's awful. It's like the worst experience possible. So Levi's is actually looking at using generative AI to build out images of women in different body types wearing each product. So that way you can really see, versus an AR where you can kind of get a feel for it, but it doesn't really, it just is an overlay. It actually takes, you can see what it looks like on somebody who has a body shape just like yours. Now, Levi's is still like using models, real human models for like their main marketing imaging. This would just be supplementary so that you could see like, how does it look like on somebody with my size, maybe my dimensions, my, measurements. And honestly, like anything that can make that jeans buying process better, like I'm a big fan.
Point noted, Amy. That's a problem statement. Yeah, we'll work towards that. Yeah. So what are your thoughts, Shana, like when it comes to the virtual try-on experiences, and how do you leverage Gen AI for creating such synthetic images? Like, because Gen AI is more about content. When you say content, it's not about the text, but it's also about the images that needs to get into those machine learning model, and then towards the training of all that. So I want to know your thoughts.
I think it's interesting because I think there's some extremes there, and I think that this is where I go back to, just because it can be automated doesn't mean that it should. And so I think being very in tune and in touch with your customer, knowing who your customer is and understanding what they want. Does it make sense for them? I was CIO in optical retail for several years, and we found that virtual try-on, we had a very narrow demographic that actually took advantage of that. And we spent, a fairly significant amount of time and investment making that available. We did so because, based on market, everyone else was doing so. And it seemed as though it was something that was highly sought after. What we found was it wasn't so utilized. And even whenever it was, we still had people who would come in and they wanted still that physical try on experience. Your eyewear is something that kind of defines you. And so that was something that was a more personal, tangible touch feel experience. And so I think, again, it just depends on, who you are, what your product is, and understanding how effective that's going to be. But I think in turn, if it is something that is relevant to you, if it is something, to Amy's point, if it's, shoes, if it's footwear, then I think that the more that we have in the way of data point and availability, I think it will become more relevant, and I think it will help our overall sales, and I think it'll help our overall consumer satisfaction.
Interesting, Shana. So even with the Gen Zs and the millennials contributing to this buying pattern, right? Like we see, like that's why, like I wanted to know. As you rightly mentioned, right? It doesn't resonate well with all industries and all product types, and certainly the areas where people can make a buying decision if virtual try-on is going to help, because the thought I had was more towards bringing down the reverse logistics cost, right? You buy something and you return it, right? If this virtual try-on experience is going to bring down that even by a small percentage, that's going to be a big saving in terms of your returns and the reverse logistics cost. So that's the thought I had. And you exactly mentioned, like, the way how that is perceived depending on the user groups and depending on the type of products that are getting involved. Thanks for that, Shauna. So, Ryan, like jewelry, right? Everyone wants to certainly try this real time than doing virtual try, especially when they spend that much on it. So, I assume that you have similar thoughts, right? Depending on.
Yeah, we have we have virtual try-on, obviously, but I just think the experience will get better with generative AI and as it develops. I mean, really, just to put it simply, I think it'll just improve that experience and just make it even more realistic and how it looks on you, and maybe but I just see massive improvement in that arena, leveraging generative AI. I just think it's going to get better and better. There'll be more offerings of it too. I think, when it first came out, it was pretty limited offerings. I think you're going to see more offerings of it and really unique offerings of it, and it'll just continue to improve by leveraging generative AI.
Absolutely, Ryan. So I saw Nathan. So the thing I wanted to ask you all the last, right? Like keeping it short. If there is a one question saying that, hey, what if, you need to come up with one problem that you would want to solve using generative AI among the priorities. There are like a lot of use cases, and we did discuss about many things out there, right? So what would you call, or how do you rate like the problem as? Like, would you be able to just give us just one problem statement that you would want to solve leveraging Gen AI across the industries or the experience you are dealing with today? So Ryan,
yes, hyper personalization.
Personalization would be a priority.
Yep.
And how about you, Shauna?
Yeah, I would have to say the same as Amy. It really comes back to, how do we drive that experience and meet our customer where they are? It's changing so rapidly. It's one of those things that it's pressing each and every day. So how do we make for the very best in class customer experience? And that comes back to how do we personalize it? It is what we hear, it's what we see, it's what we get in the way of our associate feedback. We've got to do better about making sure that they have the best experience when they walk through the door. It's what we hear from customer service about their caller experience. And so what can we do to really personalize that and give them a truly best in class every single touch, so that we can keep them coming back? To Ryan's point, it's that life cycle of customer.
Absolutely.
I think for me, it would be having generative AI be able to create a customer journey or customer experience that generates incremental lifetime value. So retention, loyalty, they keep coming back to purchasing with you. You know, the e-commerce space and the retail space is so competitive with so many options out there that how can you leverage a generative AI model that helps you guide your, you know, how you're speaking to the consumer? That's personalization, you know, making it easy for the consumer to shop with you with site search and how they interact with you with chatbots, and making that a really nice, easy experience that generates incremental lifetime value at the end of the day.
Absolutely, Ryan. So thank you so much for the interesting insights, Shana, Ryan, and Amy. So I learned a lot, at least, from each of your experiences with the kind of businesses like you are in. I mean, retail is robust, right? We cannot say there is one problem statement across industry, right? So each of us have like our own problem statements and the priorities, in fact, dealing with things. So I think it was a great experience understanding like how you see Gen AI as like, you know, the future of as the future of the retail landscape like you belong into, and also the experiences you had with it. So I think it was a pretty good session in terms of getting into the details of each of the problem statements and going over like, you know, the way how that is being solved.
Month, if
So
I could just add one more thing. I think one of the things that we can't be lost on this conversation is the security aspect of it. So no matter what, and the depth or the extent that you seek to implement, you know, whether it's Gen AI or AI into the environment, I mean, we owe it to our company, to our intellectual property, to our data, and to our customers to be really good stewards of the security aspect of it. When we talk about mining this data, we have to recognize not only, you know, the value to us as businesses and what we can glean from that, and also what our customers can do with that, but we have to recognize, you know, that we own responsibility for maintaining the safety and the security of that. And so having a strategy early days around how we're going to leverage this technology that has limitless potential, it also has limitless risk associated with it. And so going into it very eyes wide open, and having a really sound and robust framework around how we're going to be very aware of harnessing, you know, this in a way that is obviously progressive, and we want to run fast. But I think that, you know, there's some inherent risk associated with doing so, and we need to all be very aware of that.
Absolutely, Shana, the point noted, and that's an important aspect, right? So when we are looking at enhancing the consumer experience and like, you know, solving some of the problems, like at what cost, right? So security, as you rightly brought it up, and as we are in I would say like not in a very early stage, but at least in a stage where we are trying to scale Gen AI. So at that stage, I think it's a very important thing to look into the security aspects of it before we take this on a larger scale. So that's a valuable, very valuable input from you, Shana. Thank you. So any other final thoughts that Amy or Ryan that you would want to share with the larger group? I know like we had many things that we wanted to discuss, but unfortunately Naveen has locked us up with 1 hour time. So we tried best in going over the key aspects. But do you think we have anything that you would want to highlight before we wrap this great session today?
Nothing to add, but like this was a great conversation, and thanks for organizing.
So yeah, thanks, Ryan. So Nathan, like I think we are good. So we have some. There are like few answer questions that were being asked by the attendees. So since we are like running short of time, we might not be able to take, but we would definitely like get them the answers during the course of time. Nathan.
Sure, Himan. Thank you guys. Thank you for your lovely conversation, and you know, it was an amazing webinar. Thanks, Archana. Thanks, Arvind, for keeping it up from AI Core Spot side, and thanks, Shauna, Ami, Ryan, and Hemant for spicing it up. I'm sure the first webinar which we had from AI Core Spot this year had a lovely time for the attendees. So let me wrap it up. We would like to express our appreciation to all our community partners who have represented us today. distinguished speakers who have taken out their time, and all the attendees who also took their time and want to engage in this forum, which wants to create a space for knowledge enrichment. As our panel members were outstanding, we value their willingness to collaborate and share the valuable insights. In case you missed any part of this session and want to revisit it, today's event will be available on our company's YouTube page for your convenience. And as we know, exciting technological advancements are on the horizon, and we are thrilled to explore more in this year, 2024. So looking ahead, we have a diverse lineup this year. Tomorrow, we are also having a great webinar, which is Future Ready Banking and Payments, Innovative Strategies for the Digital Era. So in case you want to sign up, please go to our website, which is aicorespot.io, and sign up for the same. Also, we have some interesting webinars coming up in different industries, in banking, finance, insurance, telecom, retail, healthcare, supply chain, manufacturing, and so on. So stay connected with us for continuous learning. For more technological updates, visit our website and social media channels. We'll be sharing lots of knowledge, including details, announcement for upcoming events, and much more, aiding you in registration. We look forward to your support. Please like and share our content on the social media. Heartfelt thank you to InfoVision and Digit 7, who are all our different partners. Explore their websites, which is infovision.com and digit7.io, to delve deeper into technological advancements. We thoroughly enjoyed bringing this session to you and hope you found it as enjoyable as we did. We eagerly anticipate more sessions with you in the future. Take care. Have a great day and time ahead, guys. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Nathan. Thank you, Shana, Ryan, and Amy. Good talking to you. And happy to be a part of the very first event for this year 2024.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for giving us lovely faces, guys. Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Take care.
you.